Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the TTP Field Manual podcast. I'm Joshy. I have Jonny here with me today. We're going to continue some coverage of 500 Worlds, the new 40k supplement that came out. We've already covered the lore in our previous episode. Today we're going to be covering a bit of boarding actions. We're also going to be covering the campaign system, War on the Vespator Front. Pretty exciting, right, Jonny?
I hope you like campaigns, because that's the question of the day. What can you do with all of these supplements?
Well, you'll be pleasantly surprised, I think, and also a little bit perturbed at how familiar it is to some of our homebrew stuff we were putting together a while back.
Oh, is it now? All right.
Yeah, I took one look at the War on the Vespator Front, went into my Google Docs and deleted my Planetary Empires document. I'm like, never mind, they did it.
They beat me to it. Well, I guess they didn't really beat you to it, but...
No, I was basing ideas around some old game designs that they've just mysteriously brought back as I began to work on it. It's fine, don't worry about it.
Fine, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it, it's fine. I'm happy, actually. It's good. They had pictures in their book. But yeah, no, it's good stuff. I really like it, actually. Keen to talk about it. How you been, friend?
Yeah, pretty good. Busy, but getting on. How about you?
Yeah, busy, but getting on.
Oh, all right. I see how it is.
I have been a busy boy. I've been needing to do that really icky thing that you see all over sort of social media, like the how I plan my day, and people like schedule in free time. I feel like that's where I'm at some days. I'm like, I got to do this task. It's like, no, Joshua, it's 10 p.m. You can chill out now.
That's crazy. That's too busy. You need to cut some stuff.
I do. Well, you let us know in our community Discord if we should start a Ko-Fi or a Patreon then, and maybe I'll cut some work out.
I mean, please.
I'm just joshing you. I really can't complain. Although I can complain. I turned off my noisy background AC unit for this recording.
So did I.
Oh, it's getting hot in here, Jonny.
It sure
Take off all your
is.
clothes.
We're in far north Queensland.
Ick.
It's gonna be gross.
It was raining all night long.
Yep.
And I really enjoyed it. I just had the windows all open, lovely sound of the rain, had a very relaxing sleep. As soon as we go to do this, the rain stops, the humidity's back.
And all hell breaks loose.
On the Vespator Front or in our personal lives?
A bit of both, from what I gather.
Nice. Oh, hey, book club, read Hell's Reach. Before I forget to mention that, read Hell's Reach by Mr. Aaron Dembski-Bowden.
Is it time for me to start it yet?
Ooh, what is it? Middle of March when we record this? Yep, plausibly.
Plausibly?
Plausibly.
Oh, alright. I guess I should purchase the book then. You're gonna have to wait till I finish my current book, but that won't take long.
No, I'm gonna go buy it right now.
I don't have a credit right now, so I would have to purchase credits for it.
And we'll start listening.
Thoroughfares with their slow processions.
There we go.
Oh yeah, nice.
Half-crewed and slowed by constant interference.
Spoilers.
The Hell's Reach dock.
Whoops. That's all you get.
He said the name. That's all that matters.
Bonus points if you can tell me where in the book that was.
Between pages 1 and, I don't know, 300 or wherever, however many pages
Holy
it has.
hell, he figured it out. Hero of the Imperium, everybody.
But, to get back on topic, what else did you want to mention? Come join the Discord. We exist.
Somehow.
The more people that join, the more we can do in there. So, please come say hi.
Hi. I just sent a message in the Discord.
Nice.
Hello, everyone. Have a great day. If it's not painfully obvious by now, we're both talking at the end of a very long week.
We sure are.
And that's why I'm going to get you, Jonny, to take the first half of this episode before you crash on me in the back half.
I won't crash on you. But yes, let's talk about boarding actions.
This is your cup of tea.
Oh, the disappointment in the room, I guess it is.
Is it, though? Is it really that disappointing?
Yes and no. It was very, very well done. This book is a very nice addition, but just to get it out of the way quickly, I'm really annoyed that there was no update to the current lists that you can build with other factions that have been made obsolete over the course of the edition.
Yeah, that's really rough.
That's the only negative thing that I'm going to say about it. At this point in time, I can't promise I won't later. With 500 Worlds and the Titus release, they did release the Dread Incursions supplement, which is an addition to boarding actions without actually adding anything unless you are a Necron or an Ultramarine, which is fine. I have absolutely no problem with them releasing a whole bunch of extra stuff for those factions. What they did well with this is they put a brief summary of the boarding actions rules into the first 26-ish pages, which was very nice. It means that you can just buy this little book and play without worrying. You don't have to go buy the old boarding actions book. Although, if you're serious about it, you probably are going to, because you're going to want those rules, or you're going to go onto some illegal website like Warhammer and steal their rules.
I would never do such a thing.
Boarding actions uses the terrain that came in the Gallowdark and Tomb Worlds expansions for Kill Team to create like small close quarters combat for battles. And this book focuses on 2-player campaigns specifically. But through reading through it, you definitely could adjust it to be some sort of team gameplay as opposed to just 1v1, but it is definitely like 2 opposing forces. There is a few rule adaptations that they have to use, although it does use your standard 40k rules for anything that isn't mentioned, just to make things a little bit more fair and balanced in that both 500 point range and also that close quarters combat vibe. The way they do this is they kind of go to some of the things they used to do in older editions. They remove a bunch of keywords, they add a few things here and there, like opening hatchways, and change the way you kind of like measure movement and line of sight to make it really feel like there's something right around the corner and you don't really know what's going on. So line of sight is required for charges, line of sight is required for shooting, but it's on a model-to-model basis and you can't shoot through your own friends or your enemy friends. So it is all model by model as opposed to unit by unit like Big 40k. Deep Strike is still very heavily restricted. You lose the fly keyword on all of your dudes because we're inside a ship, there's a roof, you can't really fly over the walls. It's just to kind of like bring that narrative in. Engagement range drops down to a 2-inch range as opposed to what we have in 40k. And again, that's model by model, and you don't get access to like scout and stuff like that. On top of that, the few other changes are that your objective markers are now 1 inch instead of 3, and there's some rules around how to open and close doors and what happens with people on either side. There's also some interesting rules in here about assigning damage to models. In terms of when you shoot at your opponent and stuff like that, you can only kill models that you can see. Blast weapons work a little differently, which is that they can only target a certain number of units based on visibility of the attacking ones. You can't just blast an entire unit off the board. Everything is very line of sight specific, and indirect weapons do not work because there's a roof in the way. You can't mortar bomb people.
Oh, that sucks.
That's most of the like rule changes. There are a few others, but if you want to know exactly what's going on, pick up one of the rule books, go through it. It's pretty simple and easily adapted. But the only other things I will talk about in terms of the rules and how things progress will be tactical maneuvers and the way that leaders work, because they have changed leader as an entire premise. So leaders no longer attached to units. I know, shock horror. Instead, you get access to a stratagem that is called Battlefield Command. And what this says is that at the start of or end of any phase, you pick one leader and one unit that is within 6 inches of them. And then, for all purposes, they are now being led by that unit. They both get all the benefits of leading, and this lasts until your next command phase. but they don't have to stick together. So you could, at the start of your turn, be like, my Chaos Lord is leading these Chosen, and then he's going to go off and do his own thing, and they're going to go off and do their own thing, but they are led until the start of your next turn, which is pretty cool when you've got very limited units. It allows you to still play around the board a bit. The other thing that has changed is we now have access to tactical maneuvers, which are kind of like actions, but they have some very specific use cases. So you have things like Secure Sight, which can give you sticky objectives, Set to Defend so that your melee attacks will have +1 to hit, and Set Overwatch, which allows you to perform the Overwatch without using CP, but there is no normal Overwatch stratagem, so you must be ready, which allows for a little bit of strategic play. Like you can hold a firing line and bait your opponent out or prevent them from moving somewhere that you might not want them to move. There's a lot of strategy in those kind of phases of the game, which I really appreciate.
Very cool. I have 2 follow-up questions.
Sure.
1, how does boarding actions, list building, and detachments work? And secondly, what sort of missions tend to exist in these mission books? What type of gameplay could one expect to be playing?
It's like you jumped into the queue and decided to tell them what we're talking about next, right?
I didn't even read your notes.
Notes? You don't wing this stuff? After we have spoke about the rules of how they change from a standard game of 40k, the real question is, so what makes this different from just playing a 500-point game? The answer is the way that you build your lists and the way that you build your board, which is exactly the questions that you just asked. So list building uses some restrictions around detachments. So in the original supplement for boarding actions, they released 2 to 3-ish detachments for all of the currently supported factions. So, sorry, Emperor's Children, you missed out.
Wow.
Which had mustering rules and adaptations. And they also played around with the army rules and detachment rules to bring them into a closer balance with both the style of play with 40k and boarding actions, as well as just to nerf a few things that are designed to be played at a higher level. So a good example will be, the Adeptus Astartes Shield of the Void, which is one of the detachments in the new book. So your army can include Ultramarines units, but it cannot include any Adeptus Astartes units drawn from other chapters, so this is a specifically Ultramarines unit. And you can include up to 2 of the following, but duplicates are not allowed. You can have up to 2 different infantry characters or a Primarch.
Or, holy.
Yes.
Just bring Gilliman to a 500-point game.
Hey, you're saying that like you didn't bring Xeris to a 500-point game of boarding actions.
Okay, you've got me there.
Hey, that was legal, so it's fine. On top of that, you can include up to 1 of each of the following units, and it lists most of the infantry that you can take as a Ultramarine. So you've got Aggressors, Assault Intercessors, Jump Pack Intercessors, Blade Guard, Company of Hero Eradicators, etc., etc., etc. We're not going to go through them all, there's too many. And then you can take these as 5 or 10 models. The key thing is, with boarding actions, if you have more than 5 models, you have to split your unit in half during deployment step of the game. Just something to think about when you're making 10 blobs. They do split into 2 5s, which means that if you have a sergeant in that group, he can only go with 1 unit.
And something I quite like about deployment missions tell you a terrain setup based on the walls and doors and hatchways of this spaceship terrain set. But the board looks like a D&D tile board, and if you can't fit your units in your designated deployment squares, they come in later.
Correct. They do. And that's part of the beauty of the game, is deciding what units you're going to have come in now and what'll come in later, right? So, for the purpose of this, there's a bunch of rules adaptations that it lists. So things like units that can fly lose the deep strike ability, units with the teleport homer ability lose it. And then in order to balance things or remove a few things that the game does a little differently, it cuts a bunch of abilities from units, similar to the way that Combat Patrol cuts abilities from units to simplify the game a little. There's a similar thing here. So like Marnius Calgar loses the Master Technician ability. Rebute loses the Armor of Fate ability. The Chaplain with Jump Pack loses the Excitation of Rage ability. Incursors lose Haywire Minds. Like, these are the things that are just no longer available in this skirmish. For the purpose of this, it does say that you keep your Oath of Moments army rule. They haven't made any changes to that. But your detachment rule is each time an Adeptus Astartes model from your army makes an attack while firing Overwatch, they use 5s instead of 6s to hit. So you get an army rule based solely around overwatching. So you're really going to want to set up and stage. And each time an enemy unit makes an attack that targets an Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that is set to defend, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So now those like doctrines or tactical maneuvers are significantly better for you, which I think is really cool. And a lot of the detachment rules are very thematic to the actual gameplay and how the game works. And I really like that. And then on top of that, you get a couple of enhancements that you can play with. Enhancements are free in this. You can have both of these attached to characters if you have 2 infantry characters that can be equipped with enhancements. And you get 4 stratagems specific to this detachment instead of 6. So it is like a smaller game. And that is kind of how it works for everyone. So the Necron one, to give you an idea of how they change army rules, the Necron army rule in boarding actions is very different. You do not just get reanimation protocols.
What?
Instead, once per battle in your command phase, this unit can request reinforcement. When it does, you roll a d6 for each destroyed model in this unit, and on a 5, you return a destroyed model to the unit with its full wounds remaining. If this unit is destroyed without having requested reinforcements, after removing the last model, it immediately requests reinforcement as above. If 1 or more destroyed models are returned to this unit, set it back up on the battlefield wholly within one of your entry zones. They still get up, but it's not a constant problem like it is in 40k, because otherwise Necrons would be way too powerful in these smaller games.
And they definitely can swing up. I have pretty much only played Necrons in our games of boarding actions.
Yeah, they're still very good.
I do find across some of the factions, removing some of the abilities leaves some of, especially characters, feeling a little bit milquetoast. You end up with a character that can no longer do the role you would intend them to do in 40k, and that's all right. But then, you have to adapt that sort of strategy. So, for example, Technomancers and Psychomancers, they lose a lot of their utility. But Xeris is still very good, so I took Xeris, as you mentioned. But he's very expensive. And so I was left with a lot of just warriors, which aren't the best, but with those spiking of the 5-ups, I had models like the whole game. They just moved slowly. And Xeris was able to hold the mid-board, and I think through counter-offensives and such, killed 2 opposing warlords himself in one round.
Just like ran through enemies. Yep.
Yeah, but then I've gone to run the Deranged Outcast detachment, which is their version of destroyers. And because of the restrictions of what units you can take, I just could not make a list. And so at that time, we decided to remove list building restrictions for our games. And then it worked.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, is a lot of people have done some homebrew rules for this due to the fact that they haven't really supported it with rules updates or list building updates. So there is a Reddit out there that does talk about this every now and then, but a lot of people are like, just play a 500-point list, choose the thing you want, and just make the decisions as friends and casually play through it. Obviously, if you're in a tournament setting, you would have to stick to rules as written, or whatever the tournament organizer says.
Boarding action tournament would be quite interesting.
There were a couple when it first came out. I don't know how well supported it is nowadays. That's the gist of the rules outside of how the actual board is set up. So obviously we are using the terrain specifically from Gallowdark or Tomb Worlds. This one definitely has that like Tomb Worlds theme to it all because of, 500 worlds and the Necrons versus Ultramarines.
and recency of Kill Team releases.
So there's definitely a lot of Necron flavor to what's going on in this one. So the board is broken into a grid of 7 by 12. I think they're about 3.5 inches-ish per square. And you put down your walls and doorways exactly where they tell you to put it. Like, they do give you a map that is very well done and specifically designed around the mission at hand, which I think is very cool. And then you are given some entry zones, and these are broken into those squares. So in the Escape the Collapse mission, the defender has 4 entry zones, but the attacker has 5 entry zones. So the way that you deploy is you can put a unit and a character in each of these squares, but they must fit within the square or as physically close as possible. If they do not fit, they will have to wait until another turn to come in. So you might not be able to deploy your entire force on the first turn. You may have to wait until subsequent turns, which just helps with pacing and speeding up the gameplay a little bit. I think it's really neat the way it's done in terms of like building these like close quarters. It's all really well balanced. There's firing lanes, doorways. It feels very good to play when you're actually playing and really fun. And it's probably my preferred small edition way to play. I think that it is better than Combat Patrol for what it needs to do, but it does need that like little bit of rules balance and readjusting that it just hasn't had.
I would say that if you are just putting this together, it's your first couple of games, really do pay attention to the layout of the missions, because they will have little codes like B2, B1, A3, and this is meaning the different pieces of terrain in these boxes, because different pieces, different setups of doorways, or in the tomb world they have teleporters and other little interactive pieces of terrain that key into the mission. You might find, if you didn't pay too much attention, you just took away someone's door or something. They're like, hang on, do I have to funnel out this door? That doesn't seem right. Hold on. Oh, I gave you a wall instead of a door. Whoops.
Yeah, and they do definitely try to make it as obvious as possible. They show you where the doors are, what way they should be facing, things like that.
And a lot of appendice pictures of what's what as well.
Yeah, just when you're building, pay close attention, work together, so everyone knows kind of what's going on, and you'll find the balance is pretty good in terms of the board design. 40K's got that down pat pretty well.
Furthermore, there was a bunch of what they called asymmetric missions that I'm not entirely sure if they came out via White Dwarf or if they came out in just specifically the Killzone Gallowdark stuff. It might be the Killzone Gallowdark stuff, but there are other tile types and other different modifiers to the missions. For example, like backup entry zones and airlocks and things like that, which really modify the actual mission. I have a White Dwarf issue somewhere in here that did have a custom mission for boarding actions, which gave you these hard paper airlock tiles. And the idea was that you would actually use the airlock tiles to combine 2 boarding action boards together. And so the boarding action teams are actually trying to get onto each other's ship, but you can sabotage the airlocks and blow them up, removing that point of access into, say, your ship or their ship, whatever. It was really cool to see stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that was originally released in the Arcs of Omen days. But there's no reason you can't use that sort of stuff now. I don't know if there's any supplements for it in the boarding actions book. I haven't seen anything, but I mean, it sounds like a pretty good idea. The board is broken in half, so you definitely could like shove a couple of airlock tiles in the middle and funnel people in. There are a lot of asymmetric maps in the original supplement, and I believe there's a couple in here as well, focused specifically around the campaign.
Cool. So what is this campaign that we've got inside Dread Incursions?
They created this little like supplement. I would definitely there's 3 kind of like map layout that they've got, plus one that's a bit more open, which is the one that is specifically potentially designed to allow for like teams and stuff like that. It's kind of like guaranteed layouts based on who wins and loses. So you're going to start in one zone, and then if the attacker wins, you go and do this mission. If the defender wins, you go and do this mission, to try and like force that narrative behind it. So the first mission layout, I should say the first campaign that they give you is called the Eldritch Depths. So Necron tomb complexes and void ships are ancient, perilous environments, yet for those willing to brave the dangers, they contain many time-lost technological wonders that are worth fighting to possess or to protect. It focuses on where you're going to move through this like space hulk or through this tomb world complex, trying to accomplish the mission based on whether you are the attacker or the protector. Sorry, the aggressor or the protector. And it will have rules around who becomes the attacker and defender. Someone might get a benefit or a starting benefit based on who won the previous game. But this one, you start with the decryption starting mission, with the aggressor being the attacker and the protector being the defender. And then based on who wins, you will either awaken the defense grid or you will take the artifact. It kind of like spreads out in this little maze. So from there, it's like if the defense grid is awakened, then you have to go for the errant translocators and do that mission and try and like fix the issue before you can get to locate the escape route, which is the last mission. Whereas if you took the artifact, then you have to escape as there is a collapse in the tomb world before getting to that locate escape route. So it's this little like play-by-play, depending on who wins or loses. And there's even like major victories and minor victories that are written into the book as well. So if you win by a landslide, then you might go do a different mission. Whereas if it's a draw, you might not be able to do that mission. You know, like they've really worked around the idea that how well the game previously goes will determine what the next step is. And I think they've done a pretty good job of that. So the way that you determine a major victory or a minor victory is the VP difference. So if at the end of any battle, one player has 30 victory points or more than their opponent, that player has achieved a major victory and will be the advantage player in the next battle, which will have benefits for the start of the game or during the game. It also says if a battle results in a draw, players roll off to determine the winner for the purpose of deciding which path to follow. When rolling off in this way, the victory achieved will always be a minor victory. And if the result of the final mission in the campaign is a draw, players do not roll off. Instead, the efforts of the forces have been evenly matched. Losses have been incurred by both forces. Neither was able to score a decisive victory. So you can fail your campaign. If for some reason you both draw, nobody wins.
God, wouldn't that just feel great? Well, we played all these missions. No one's winning. Shall we do it again? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, they're all limited to like 3 or 4 games. Gets you through like a campaign, right? So it's not like it's a long-form crusade narrative. They're meant to be a quick little couple of games over, you know, a month or 2 or a weekend. Because this game is fast enough. You could do it in a day if you really wanted to, you know?
It feels like D&D for Warhammer.
Kinda, yeah.
Go through the dungeon.
The second mission they give you is a little bit more straightforward. There are 3 different final missions based on who wins and loses in different manners, which is pretty cool to see. Like there's a definitive answer in different ways instead of it all linking around to one big circle.
That's really fun.
Yeah. And then the third one gives you a ship-to-ship conflict, so you're jumping between different ships accomplishing things, which is designed to alternate between like 2 different boarding forces. So you'll have Team A and Team B on different ships working to like get together. So this one takes a little bit longer because you're essentially playing 2 campaigns at once. But it's pretty neat because it all coalesces into one final mission, which is completely determined by whether the aggressor won the last two missions, or each side won one of each, or if the protector won the last two. So it depends on who won on both ships, determines what the final mission will actually be, which is pretty cool. It could either be a lockdown, a locate escape route, or reinforcements inbound as the final mission. But they're the three campaign maps that they give you in very, very brief. Don't want to spoil too much. Go have a look at it yourself if you actually want to play it. They're pretty neat. The last one is the Lights in the Darkness, which is their more free form, can use different set terrain that they have available. So this one actually branches out of just Tomb Worlds, and now you can use Tomb Worlds or the original boarding actions, or a bit of both if you own both, which is pretty cool. And it uses a little bit more crusade-y sort of stuff. So at the end of each battle, for each VP earned by a player in that battle, they gain a TP, or a tactical point, and these can be used outside of the battle to enhance what they're doing or buff their next deployment, which is pretty neat. You can essentially use your victory points in the next game, which really helps you score. But this one is focused on like two forces going against each other with a little bit more freeform, meaning you could potentially use teams earning these tactical points and stuff like that, play with all your friends and have an attacking and a defending force if you wanted to do something. And this one's a little more freeform. The idea of this is you gain campaign victory points based on whether you win, lose, or draw, with more victory points coming from a major victory. You work through all the different missions there are until you either finish up whatever you're doing or decide to stop. It specifically says like you will create a pool of missions based on which train sets you want to use, and you'll roll and remove them as you do it. So you'll do them all at least once, and then you can either add them all back in at the same time, or you can end the campaign from there.
Or you just say, fuck it, we ball, blow up the ship, and get out of there. That's really cool. I like boarding actions a lot. I would be down to give the little campaign system a go. For sure.
I think with like 500-point forces and all of that, it might be neat to add in some crusade-y sort of vibes without all of the tracking that some people dislike. To round out the book, they just have 12 missions, 6 for Tomb Worlds terrain and 6 for boarding actions terrain.
Are the 6 for the OG terrain the same as the OG supplement?
No, they are new ones, which is pretty neat to see. That's the whole book. That's the whole supplement.
That's an incursion of Dread.
Yeah, it is. It's just like a quick little supplement to boarding actions. The biggest cost of entry for boarding actions is getting the terrain. With the world of like 3D printing and all of that, you can definitely get versions of this terrain without spending the significant amount of money that it costs to buy.
Is that right, Jonny? You can print it, can you?
I own boarding actions, all right?
Yeah. We got one official set and one printed set, right?
We do. Because our player base grew and then shrank.
Oh, dear.
That's boarding action TLDR. If you want to know more, go check it out. It is a lot of fun. The last thing I would like to touch on with boarding actions is kind of what we have done in the interim to, have some fun with it, remove some of the potential issues that might come up from the lack of support. A lot of what we have done as a team is remove a lot of those restrictions as we have become better with the game. We understand things a little better. We're willing to discuss the rule of cool and the rule of degeneracy a little bit. Really focus on that 500-point list building using either the boarding actions detachments or the regular one, and just have some fun with it, And how have you felt with what we have done with boarding actions in the past in terms of our adaptations?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. It works really well when you want to do something, but you don't have the full units. For example, to go back to the Destroyer thing before, it said, you can only take 2 of these following units, 2 of the Scorpex, 2 of the Ophidians, 2 of the Flayed Ones. Well, I had 3 Scorpex and a Flayed Ones, and I couldn't fill out a whole list of Destroyers with that arrangement. And so I did 3 lots of Scorpec Destroyers, Scorpec Lord, and I think some Flayed ones. And oh, look at that. It just miraculously fit together really well. How about that? Well, let's play. That's it. Done.
And it stuck to the theme of what you were trying to do and what we were trying to do. So it worked well for us.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of odd restrictions in some of those earlier ones. Well, looking at it from a current time perspective to something that came out a little while ago, you look at it, you're like, that doesn't really make much sense. There's not a whole lot tied to discount boxes, or it seems pretty arbitrary to lock me into these units, which I don't really want to have, or I don't want to buy now. I'd rather use the models I have. And so that definitely is a little bit irksome. And there's definitely some balancing issues because they would, change the points of units with all the seasonal balance data slates they would do. And so what I was running into when I did one match with Sisters in this boarding actions was my list didn't fit. It literally didn't fit at all. Like, I couldn't make it work. So I just said, hey, I would like to run this unit, but I'm going to split it in half. Just bring 5 girls and take it as half of the points value. And you're like, yeah, what are you stressing for, Josh? Oh, because it's not allowed to. You're like, oh, fuck that. Do what you want. Okay.
Have fun, please. But that works for us because we are a casual play group. We're not hyper competitive. Otherwise, someone else would have been like, oh, well, I guess you're only bringing 400 points, right?
Didn't we also make a joke one tipsy night of having Magnus be in the middle of the spaceship as some ginormous Overwatch threat to anyone he could see?
But he's the whole list.
He's the whole list. Yeah, it was really fun. I like a lot of the little strategy elements to it. The line of sight blocks is really neat. I'm a big fan of 5 death marks in a line against a wall. And so they're not blocking each other, but they can all see through a door.
Yep. Just sniping anything that decides to walk into line of sight.
Yeah, it's good. There's definitely moments that will tie you up, like, I'll do this. And you base your strategy around it. And then you realize, oh, the leader's not actually leading. Oh, I can't aim all my guns through the door. Oh, I put the heavy weapon person behind other people. Oh. Then after a couple of games, you get it.
Yeah, it's a lot more strategy in how you move and how you interact with your opponents. You really got to think about where you position models.
Yeah, it feels like a very granular experience compared to 40k. And I think a lot of the things that you'll learn from mastering, I suppose, the strategy of a boarding actions game doesn't 100% translate into 40k, but I think it does teach you a lot about positioning, line of sight, unit cohesion,
Staging.
and making sure every unit has a role. Staging, as you just said, it's a really good one. And I think this is a really good way to expand your sort of tactical mastery of it.
And it's in a small enough bite-sized piece of 500 points. You can kind of get used to it with 3 or 4 units before you start scaling up into the bigger 2,000 point game and beyond.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you wanted to gloss over, friend?
No, I think that's about it for this. But we do still have Vespator Front for you.
The Vespator Front?
Front?
All right, Johnny. We had a fun little chat about boarding actions and Dread Incursions. Now we're going to talk about the other thing in the 500 Worlds. One of the 3 softcover booklets that it came with. The War on the Vespator Front. This is a campaign system. It is a relatively straightforward set of rules and framing devices for doing a relatively large-scale campaign with multiple players. I just sent you a couple of pictures of the props that are used for this that is included in the box set. And when you first look at this, you're probably going to think, what in the warp? What the hell? That's insane. That's obtuse, one might say.
Holy moly.
Holy moly. So, the War on the Vespator Front, as I just pointed out, is a large-scale campaign system. This is rather involved. How it is framed is that we are fighting over the Vespator Front. As we outlined in our lore episode, there are many, many conflicts occurring throughout that system, or set of systems. What we are given in this box set is, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 planets in a sort of Dawn of War Soulstorm vibes galactic map. 13 worlds.
Yeah.
One of them's even Nova Magnor. Hee. We know about that one.
Not 500 worlds?
No, it's the 13 worlds, actually. Ultramar, baby.
That's neat.
And to essentially break this down from the map itself, and then I'll circle back around to how it all works, is that we have this galactic map. There are 13 planets. Each planet has a name, and then there are 4 sort of components to each map. There are power levels, and this is a small sort of 3x4 grid or 5x3, depending on the planet, etc. grid that is indicative of power levels of alliances of players. This represents who's in control of that particular planet. Around the planet, there is orbit locations, which represents alliance fleets. There are infrastructure locations, which represent buildings and bases and such. And then there are also theaters, which are mission modifiers, essentially. And the book does a really good job of breaking this down so it's actually quite easy to follow. But if you look at it and you were to say, oh, friends of ours, look at this, they'd be like, no way. No way. This looks like EVE Online level craziness, right? But it's not.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not.
It's definitely not.
So, whereas Crusade focuses around a lot of bookkeeping for your units, War on the Vespator Front does away with that. Your units, your list is just as if you were playing a regular matched game of Warhammer 40k. All of the sort of bookkeeping, if you will, for this campaign system is done by a designated War Master, which seems like a very loaded term in Warhammer, but anyway, Horus. And so very early on in the book, it breaks it down into the fact that we have a setup phase of the whole campaign, which takes place before everything else. And what it says for step 1 is to determine your War Master or the Game Master, alliances, and fleets. And it basically breaks it down in a little bit of a table like, hey, how many players do you have? This is how many alliances you should run, and this is how many fleets you should have per alliance. So, for example, we are a group of 6 players normally for our little home campaign. It recommends we have 3 alliances, and that each alliance has 2 fleets, so 1 per player. If you were to have a really big campaign with 13 plus players, it still recommends 3 alliances because that's the norm. There's usually like an Imperium, a Chaos, and a Xenos vibe to a lot of these things, but you can have whoever. And then each player would receive a fleet. A fleet represents a particular player's army as it goes around the galactic map to engage in battles against other players. The next thing it says is determining your campaign duration. What it suggests is that there will be 6 campaign phases or 6 rounds of trying to win over this galactic front. It recommends that each player typically plays 2 games per phase over a month duration. Of course, this is flexible. And so what it outlines is essentially 12 games per player around about a 6-month framework. You can just do 6 games each over 2 days if you wanted to. You know, you can flex it shorter or larger than it needs to be based on your needs. I think there's a lot of interesting things here because you can really keep it small scale and just have a bit of fun with what the campaign system offers. But you could easily wrangle in like a whole local game store. And every month you put up the roster like you versus you, you versus you, you versus you, with alliances essentially forwarding their intentions and what they want to do to the War Master, who bookkeeps everything and then is like, all right, here's what's going on. Step 3 in the setup of the campaign phase is deciding on strongholds. Now, you'll notice that there are so many planets and that there is only so much infrastructure locations on each world. Each alliance chooses a single planet to build what is known as their stronghold infrastructure upon. And this is like their base. This is the Alliance stronghold for the whole campaign. Like, this is your staging ground. Wherever you have a stronghold, you have the maximum power level on that planet, up to 4. And then from there, you choose 3 other planets where your Alliance will have power level 3. 4 other planets will be power level 2. All other planets will be level 1. If more alliances wish to build stronghold on a planet than its infrastructure locations can accommodate, the War Master can then randomly decide who gets what. But essentially, you'll be able to spread out quite evenly, and then afterwards we go to step 4, where alliances decide on infrastructure. We'll come back to infrastructure in a sec, but essentially each alliance will then secretly decide on 3 pieces of infrastructure to put around their map. This is then revealed, and then the War Master, of course, allocates things and fits everything in. After all that is decided, the alliances then decide on a starting planet for each of their fleets. And then you can essentially begin from there. So what you'll end up with is 2 to 3 planets, which are obviously Alliance strongholds, and then several outlying fortifications, and then fleets will be in positions to either attack or defend. And that's the setup of the whole campaign. It's relatively straightforward, I think. What do you think so far, Jonny?
I mean, seems simple enough. You decide who's on whose team, and you decide where you're going to start.
Absolutely. We then have what's called the campaign phase. So around the actual doing of battles, you will have the campaign phase, which is broken down into 5 steps. Selecting operations, performing operations, results and unfolding events, moving fleets, and building infrastructure in that order. So at the back of the campaign book, there is something called the Alliance Orders form. And this is a relatively straightforward looking little library card where you have essentially someone in your alliance. If you're playing with a lot of players, that is, you have your alliance name, you have then a list of the various fleet IDs, such as 1 through 3, what operation type they're going to be performing, and then any additional selections such as raising as support facility infrastructure. The various operations you can choose from, and it's recommended to just do battles for the first couple, is indeed that battle operations, where you essentially have different fleets decide different attack types. These correspond to the actual missions found in the campaign system. There are 6 in total. The campaign attack types include Seize Power Base, and they do a good job of explaining the intended effect of these things. So seizing the power base, the attacking alliance attempts to take over pieces of infrastructure that the opposing alliance has constructed at the selected planet, or aims to destroy them in order to raise their own order over the ruins. Then we have Purge and Burn, which is good for reducing power level of the opposing alliance. Orbital Invasion. It just keeps going. Essentially what you're working around is either raising your own power, or tearing your opponent down, or removing their infrastructure, etc., etc. The 6th mission is boarding actions, Jonny.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. Which has the attacking alliance strike at an opposing alliance fleet stationed in orbit at the planet, so if you're nearby. The aim of this is to cause enough destruction that the defending fleet will have to relocate if they lose.
Okay.
Each of these attack types, including the boarding actions, refer to a particular mission, which is structured like any other type of mission. Get to sort of the nitty-gritty of it at the end. But it does outline a few sort of key operations. So there's less decision-making. Do you want to establish a beachhead? Do you want to burn the world down? Do you want to, bombard the planet and potentially remove it from the campaign in its entirety? There's a few options.
Wait, you can exterminatus planets?
Yes. So if a particular planet has had several losses of its infrastructure to what's known as a destroyed infrastructure location, rather than removing an infrastructure location, you can just destroy it with certain missions, such as planetary bombardment. If all of the infrastructure locations on a galactic map's planet is destroyed, not removed, but destroyed, the planet is uncontrollable.
Whoops.
So planets like Nova Magnor only have 2 infrastructure locations. So if there have been a couple of planetary bombardment missions that were successful, Nova Magnor is out of the game, which could be really clutch if that's like a staging ground or if it's a stronghold, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's a tomb complex too. That would be real sad.
Right. Hey, we learn about that. So there are several other operations you can choose besides battle operation. As I point out before, the campaign is suggesting you just do battles to start with to get your head around the whole campaign phase, which I agree with. But the other operations you can choose include Void Leap, which is where you select a planet on the map, and then in the 4th step of the campaign phase, the moving the fleet will just move there. This is important because normally you can only move one planet at a time based on warp lanes, which are lines between the worlds on the galactic map. And so if you really want to go to a different, totally opposite sector of the map, you can just do Void Leap instead of committing to a battle operation. Naturally, you might still end up in a battle. It sounds like I'm fighting you. But if your intention is to move, you can just Void Leap instead and go on a little journey in your favorite rocket ship, zooming through the sky.
Little Einstein.
We need you. Third operation is Raising of the Edifices. This is if you want to sort of knuckle down and build more infrastructure, which we'll have some information on in a sec. This allows you to essentially build 2 pieces of infrastructure in a whole campaign phase rather than 1, which happens at the very end of the phase.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
The next one is Logistical Auxiliary Operation. Basically, when you pick Logistical Auxiliary, this is really good if you expect to be attacked because you get to choose the theater of war, which is going to offer some modifiers to the mission played.
Nice.
The last option is Deploying Kill Teams.
It's what now?
Yeah, it's what now? So it's sort of encouraged that you can add to this campaign system what you want. You don't actually have to play a game of Kill Team, but I suppose you totally could. But deploying kill teams basically allows you to select a fleet's planet or a connected one, and then in a low-level resistance for each opposing alliance, the War Master rolls a d6. On a 5+, the alliance's power level at that planet is reduced by 1. So let's say a planet nearby has 3 alliances around a similarly competitive power level. It's not really sure who's going to end up with this planet in the next 1 to 2 phases. If you deploy kill teams, you're essentially sabotaging their chances at having that planet be sort of theirs.
Oh, yeah. That's so cool.
It's a bit of a gamble, though. You can't just be like, deploy kill teams, deploy kill teams, deploy kill teams, and expect to just attrition your way to victory. There is some randomness to it.
Yeah. But it ups your chances.
There's a little fun tidbit here, which is a bit of a lore blurb, which I'll read out because I think is kind of fun. It's Perilous Reaches. The territories designated for eventual Ultramarine conquest would take Gilliman's armies years, even were time and distance their only foes. Yet there are many more challenges to be overcome and dangers to face. Hostile alien flora and fauna infest the world's asteroid belts or even deep space, ready to defend their territories with feral savagery. Bizarre cosmic phenomena, such as the gravitic riptides of Langsturm, which I think's a warp rift, the parasitic planetoids of the Squirm stars, the warp rifts of Hangman's Reach, or the invisible comets that streak through so-called Demon's Alley, all present their own dangers. Then there are the myriad void pirate fleets, renegade warbands, Xenos enclaves, separatist human worlds, and the dark kingdoms of betrayer warlords, all fighting one another or forming ad hoc alliances to claim systems for themselves. Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, 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 blah,
It's really, really neat framing there.
Yeah.
We are at the second step of the performing operations, which is broken down by revealing the Alliance's operations, so everyone's fed their intended effects to the War Master. The War Master computes everything and then says, this is what's happening. Raising edifices occurs before battles, so this can be pretty pivotal. If someone expects to be fought, but there's an infrastructure location, maybe you build that knowing you're about to get into a fight anyway. Then you will go to the battle operations themselves. You will then afterwards process the battle results. Each mission has certain outcomes depending on the mission itself and who wins or loses. After battles, fleets will arrive if they did Void Leap. Then there'll be, after the fleet, there will be low-level resistance stuff, which is the kill team side of things. So if you can preempt maybe someone doing a Void Leap, they're going to arrive in system, and then you can basically cripple them ahead of time by having them arrive to somewhere that's not very in favor of their alliance. And so there's a lot of, behind the scenes strategy to it all, but there's not a whole lot of strategy options available to you. So you just sort of pick from a very small list of things to do. Following that, you get the results and the Vespator Front's events, which is step 3. Then moving fleets occurs after all of that, where you get to just move one planet at a time. And then afterwards, working from the alliance with the highest total power level across all planets, each alliance can then build one piece of infrastructure.
Neat.
But what are the infrastructures? There's actually not that many.
Yeah, what are they? Go on.
So there's only 4 types of infrastructure. There's Stronghold, which is got a maximum of 1 per alliance.
Your home base.
Yep, home base. Each time a player who is part of this infrastructure's alliance wins a battle at this or a connected planet, they can treat their alliance's power level at that planet as 1 higher or lower than it actually is for the purposes of the battle's campaign outcomes, which comes into the mission results.
Yep, so pretty good to have.
But strongholds offer maximum power level on a world. The idea is that your alliances are trying to have as much power level as possible to win the overall campaign.
Yep.
Staging grounds is another structure. You can have 3 of these per alliance. Again, you can treat power level as 1 higher or lower than it actually is for a battle mission. The effect of multiple of these is not cumulative, but basically it allows you to twist mission parameters in your favor if you have a staging ground.
They're just stopping you from putting them all on one planet.
Support facility is another option. You can have 3 of these per alliance. Essentially, you can treat planets that are a distance of 2 as a distance of 1. So if you are at somewhere that is a support facility, you can Void Leap a bit further along, or moving fleets a bit further along.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, there are fortification lines, which you can have 5 of per alliance. What this is, it means that your power level cannot drop below 1 on that world. And if this is built, it increases the power level of its alliance. But if you were to reduce the power level of the alliance by way of like a mission or a kill team operation, for example, you can just destroy the fortification line instead. And that's all there pretty much is for infrastructure. It's really nice and straightforward.
And simple. I like that it's not overly complicated. It's still with enough complications that there's some stuff to track, but there's only a few things you can do, which is good.
There are a fun bit of replayability with end of campaign medals. There are 4 essentially achievements to hand out to various players. So if you were to play again, you have a little bit of modification. For example, the Laurel of Victory is awarded to the victorious alliance. The benefit is while setting up the campaign map, at the start of the alliance decides on stronghold step. This alliance selects 1 planet to build their stronghold on. They can build an additional fortification line. No other alliance can build any infrastructure on that planet. No other alliance can select for that planet to have a power level of more than 1. And no fleets from other alliances can start at that planet. And so there's a little bit of New Game Plus energy with a lot of these little medals. But I don't know if you'd be quite in a rush to do it all again, if I'm being honest. But it could be fun anyway.
It definitely could be fun.
All right, Johnny, we get to random tables.
Uh-oh, random tables. Why are we doing random tables?
Random tables. There are Vespator Front events. As the campaign progresses, there will be additional events introduced into the campaign to maintain an exciting narrative. Some of these can happen in any phase of the campaign, but others will only take effect if one alliance begins to pull too far ahead or fall too far behind. This Vespator Front event is part of the campaign phase. When this comes up in the step sequence, the War Master basically goes down a list. If one alliance is more than 5 campaign points ahead of each of the others, they are said to be dominating. The War Master then rolls a d6, and on a 4+, they generate a Perils of Power event. Johnny, go ahead and roll for me a D3.
3.
3. Perils of Power event, an open tome. In the next campaign phase, in the select operations step, the players of the dominating alliance must declare all of their fleet's campaign operations and reveal them to the players of the other alliances before those players then declare their own fleet's campaign operations. The flavor text says the more overstretched an empire becomes, the more easily spies slip through the gaps to discover its secrets.
Ooh, I like it.
My favorite one on this table is cult uprisings. Dissident zealots rise up all across this world. Their religious riots and targeted acts of sabotage cause escalating destruction and anarchy. The War Master selects one of the planets that the dominating alliance has its highest power level at, but not the stronghold, to be the site of the uprising, then do so with the following. For each piece of infrastructure at the planet, roll a d6. On a 3 to 5, that infrastructure is destroyed. On a 6, that infrastructure location is destroyed. And note, this can cause the planet to be destroyed. Then,
Nice.
for each power level of the dominating alliance, roll a d6, subtract 1 from the result if there is a fleet from that alliance at that planet. And for each 4, subtract 1 from the power level of the planet. So there's a lot of, hey, you're getting too far ahead. We need to give everyone a chance. Cult uprisings.
I do like that there's those kind of balance checks in play to stop someone from just snowballing ahead.
And it works the other way too. If one alliance is more than 5 campaign points behind, you can do a desperate measures event. Would you like to do another D3?
Oh, neat. Sure. 1.
A costly bargain. The trailing alliance can select one planet, including any with one or more opposing strongholds on, and one opposing alliance. Those 2 alliances switch their power level with each other.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Just take someone's world.
Yep. A costly bargain. But then there are, of course, fortunes of war. Finally, the War Master rolls a d6, adding 1 to the result if it is the 4th campaign phase or later. On a 4+, they generate a Fortunes of War event. Jonny, can you roll me a d33?
A D33?
Yeah.
I can. How does... What's that? A 12 sound?
12, Void Piracy. An upsurge in void piracy sees fleets forced to move cautiously lest they be caught in ambushes or leave their supply routes open and undefended. What this means is, in the next campaign phase, fleets cannot declare the Void Leap operation, and the support facility infrastructure rules do not take effect.
Ooh, that could be real brutal if someone's trying to pull out.
But yes, absolutely. Roll me another D33. Since there are 9 options, let's give another one.
I rolled the exact same.
Too many pirates, Jonny. What is this, Season of the Corsairs?
23.
23. Ooh. Starvation and disease.
Ugh, yucky.
The hardships of ongoing war ravage planetary populations and garrison forces throughout this section of the Vespator Front, leading to sickness, death, and scattered rebel uprisings. What this means is, subtract 1 from each alliance's power level at every planet. It's pretty huge.
That seems like a feels bad moment.
It's pretty huge. I mean, everyone takes the L, but yeah.
It's like, oh, guess what, guys? We're going back a turn. Every planet, that's a lot.
It is a lot. But there's really just only one more component to this whole campaign, which is theaters. Theaters of the 513 worlds.
I was wondering when we'd get to this.
So there are a total of 10 different theaters of war.
Are there? There's only 9 in the reference.
Well, I can't count. There are 9 theaters of war.
Nice. Okay, cool. I was like, did they miss one?
Fighting on an exterminatus planet. Back to Isfahan we go, boys. So, yeah, there are 9 theaters of war. Each of them are intended to be quite unique, but much like everything else in this system, not too overwhelming with information or options.
So these are like twists, I'm assuming?
Yeah, they're like twists. They have a little bit of flavor text.
Like modifiers to the game?
Yeah, they have a little bit of flavor text. We'll start with Spaceport, because it's the first one. Packed with communication and coordination technology, spaceports not only facilitate rapid force deployment, but are also prime strategic hubs. Now, each of these locations have a tactical benefits sort of breakdown explaining, like, if you were to choose this one, this is how it's going to likely benefit. So spaceports have twists that make control of objective markers easier and provide improved reactive maneuverability, with units able to fall back and continue to operate effectively. It is suited to more elite armies that can take advantage of such rules to prevent their units from becoming bogged down and trapped by more numerous foes. Before they get into the twist table, they also have a recommended terrain blurb for each of the zones.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, it's super cool. For Spaceport, it says we recommend using tall buildings and ruins as terrain features. These should be placed plentifully across the battlefield, but with gaps between them wide enough for larger vehicles to navigate. Some of these can be connected with barricades to represent cordons and barricades.
Neat. No, that's pretty cool.
Roll me a d6, Johnny. Give me a Spaceport twist.
2.
Coordinated lock. These guidance nodes can be locked onto and watched over by orbital assets once captured. What this means is that at the end of the command phase, now this is in the game,
Yep.
for each objective marker the player whose turn it is controls, that objective marker remains under their control until their opponent's level of control over that objective marker is greater than theirs at the end of the phase. Sticky objectives, hello.
Nice. I was going to say, are we going to go through all of them, or do you want to just do a couple?
We'll just do a couple. I'll let you know what the other types of things are. So there's Desolate Waste,
Yep.
Xenoflora Jungle, Rad Zone, which sounds really cool. It's rad. We have the Forge Complex. We have the Hab Sprawl, the Delve Site Facility, the Deadlands, and the Tomb Complex. Which one would you like to hear about?
I want to hear about the Xenoflora jungle.
Yeah, I thought you might. So, tactical benefits provide a boost to melee-oriented armies, contributing improved damage dealing, protection from Overwatch, and punishment of units that fall back. Recommended terrain, a mixture of woods and ruins to represent a largely forested region dotted with the remains of overgrown structures. There should be a large number of such terrain features scattered fairly equally across the battlefield. Give me a twist.
Cool. D6?
Yeah.
6.
Predatory plant life.
Yeah, this is what I was hoping for.
Ooh. Barb gorse, strangle vines, brain thief fungi, carnivorous pit plants, and untold other horrors wait to snatch and devour unwary combatants blundering in panic through the underbrush. Each time a unit not monster vehicle falls back, all models in that unit must take a desperate escape test, and when doing so, if they are battle shocked, subtract 1.
Don't run away.
Don't run away. I like Green Hell.
Oh, yeah?
Units cannot use the fire Overwatch stratagem.
Oh, wow,
it's too
okay.
dense in here.
Sorry, all you flamers.
Oops. So each world has 3 of these zones, so you get to sort of choose one.
Some have 2.
2 or 3. 2 or 3, you get to choose one, and then you roll a twist. Let's do another one.
Please. Yeah, let's find out about this rad zone. You seemed interested.
Yeah, it's cool. It's rad. Basically, it's Fallout all over again. What they want for this, terrain-wise, is recommending using tall hills to limit visibility. Ruins and buildings should not be placed on these hills to represent clusters of hardened structures huddled in the more sheltered lowlands of this hostile theater. Tactical benefits basically cause significant disruption to comms and attempts to launch immediate attacks, reducing lethality and improving durability. It is suited to armies that favor a more attritional style of play. Hello, Death Guard. Give me a twist.
5.
5. Esoteric interference. Fox systems, orbital augury, and even psychic communion are all disrupted by clouds of ash and exotic energies. What this means is, outside of the 1 CP players gain at the start of the command phase, players cannot gain additional CP regardless of the source.
Great for Chaos Space Marines. Because we don't generate CP.
Yeah, how about that, eh?
How about that?
So I'm not going to go through all of them. That would take too long.
No, I think that's enough.
But then we have the Vespator Front missions themselves. Now, they basically go through the whole mission sequence thing again. Number 5 is determining the theater twist. So you read the mission, you select the battle size, you muster your armies, you place your objective markers, determine the twist, create the battlefield, determine attack and defender, so on, so on. Now, it says that no more than half of the units in your army can start the battle in reserves, and the points total of those units cannot be more than half of the points total of your army, but there is a mission that allows you to actually put half in reserves, so that's fun.
Nice.
So, as I said, there were a few missions that sort of keyed around the stages of assaulting a planet or defending it. Number 6 is just straight up pick a boarding actions mission from what's recommended to be the Dread Incursions supplement, would you know?
I would want to hope so.
Yeah. I'll just read out the first one. So there's some novelty when you guys play it. So seizing the power base is the first mission. It's very straightforward. It's long edge deployment. The idea is that it is a take and hold mission. From the second battle round onwards, you can do the whole 5 victory for holding objectives, but note you have to hold 2 or more, not just 1. There is a progressive objective at the end called Chrono Fix Supremacy, where at the end of each player's last turn, that player scores 15 victory points for each objective marker they control.
That's a lot of victory points.
Oh, yeah. Now, there is lots of mission rules, actually, in these various missions in the Vespator Front. This is to do with a lot of the galactic map side of things. There will be mission rules that are more or less just mission-oriented, and then there are mission rules based on what I just said. So, the mission rules for seizing power base is Rapid Strike. The attacker has first turn. Then there is Critical Assets, which is at the end of the Create the Battlefield step. The defender sets up 4 objective markers anywhere on the battlefield, more than 6 away from deployments and more than 9 away from other markers. At least one of those must be placed wholly within the attacker's battlefield half, but the others don't have to be.
Ooh.
Now, for each piece of infrastructure that the Defenders Alliance has at this planet, they can select one of those objective markers to have the relevant ability below. So there are 4 types of infrastructure. Let's say it's the Stronghold World. Comms network is available. Each time a player selects a unit from their army within range of this objective marker as the target of a stratagem, on a d6 roll of 4+, they gain a CP. If you have the support facility, one of those objective markers, which I would say should be the attacking half, is the unstable material duct. Models within range of this objective marker have deadly demise 1. And so on. Another of the mission rules is asset guards. So at the start of the deploy army step, the defender can select a number of units from their army up to the power level, so 2, 3, 4. And when doing so, Titanic units count as 2, of course, and if possible, they must select units without the monster or vehicle. Keyword. For each objective marker, they can select 1 asset guard unit and set that unit up anywhere on the battlefield wholly within range of that objective marker, which is pretty cool.
I like it. I like it a lot.
But of course, we need to give the attackers something. So Vanguard Prowlers, you can select a number of units from their army up to the power level. Of course, the same thing, Titanic, monster vehicle, blah, blah, blah. Those units will gain Scout 6. And so there's lots of rules around the galactic map side of things. If you've got infrastructure, how's the power level of the Alliance going? But then depending on who wins this mission, if the attacker wins, the attacker selects a defending Alliance infrastructure, it is removed, and then they get to build one of their own. If there are no such pieces of infrastructure, they can just build one regardless. If the attacking alliance's power level is 3 or more, they build 1 piece of infrastructure as well, and then they add 1 to the power level at the planet. So if it's a relatively unoccupied planet, you just create a huge beachhead to attack out of. Now, if the defender wins, they can build a fortification lines at this planet or 1 connected to it. If the power level of the planet is 3 or more, they can build a staging grounds instead, and they get to add 1 to the power level of the planet. If there's a draw, the attacker gains 1 power level, but nothing for defender. And the other 4 missions are similarly around this sort of rules ethos. And there's lots of different types of deployments. You get diagonal deployment, you get center of the board deployment, you get a really scary chevron deployment where you have a couple of corners for the attacker to deploy in, but the defender gets a whole middle strip of the board.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I don't want to spoil too much. That's overall the campaign system. You basically just have this campaign phase where you're choosing where to sort of place your attacks and where to build your bases, which planets to go for, where you want to consolidate your alliance's power level so that in the long run your alliance has the most power level points to win the campaign as a whole. And then when it comes to actually fighting, you choose a twist and play a mission. It is lightly suggested that you can swap out these various missions with whatever you want to. It's even suggested if you feel like it, you can turn this into the backing of a crusade, which, would you know, Jonny, that a lot of that ideas in this book was something we tried to get off the ground in one of
ourselves.
One of our previous crusade episodes, about probably this time last year. We got Crusade at Home, I think is what it was called. We were talking a lot about homebrewing stuff along these lines for a Crusade game. And look, here it is.
We sure were. So now we got to start again, do we?
I don't think we could convince people to do this, but if we were to do so, I think a way that you could really make this go by quite quickly is committing ahead of time to say, like, hey, let us do 3 months. Every 2 weeks we play 2 games. And then you would get through 12 games in the whole recommended campaign system.
2 games, you reckon?
If you're playing at least semi-competitive level, you should be able to get a game in 3 to 4 hours. You make a whole day of it. You plan ahead of time. You don't have to bookkeep your army unless you're adding Crusade rules to the mix. And you could get through it. Or you could just do 6 campaign phases, or 4, or 24, whatever you want.
Neat.
But I think this works much better with more players.
It definitely feels that way.
There's even an auto-resolve tidbit in the book which says, hey, you've assigned all the matchups for this campaign phase, and in the month or whatever, if someone can't do it or they just don't do that battle, then the attacker wins. Done.
Fair. Okay. To keep things moving.
Yeah, there's no waiting around.
This would be cool if, like, a hobby store did it as a whole thing. That'd be pretty cool.
I think so.
Enough people playing.
Yeah.
A lot going on. Give everyone a week to get their game in or whatever.
I think this has basically oriented itself around larger game groups and people who like a bit of that team vibes without necessarily having to play larger teams games. But there are some interesting things.
And then it helps us lean into the future of the bigger apocalypse games that we'll be getting rules for real soon.
Well, closing thoughts, Jonny, because I gotta go.
The closing thoughts are, this seems like a lot of fun, and it is unfortunate that I will probably never get the chance to play through it.
Yeah, it is a bit unfortunate, isn't it?
But seems like an absolute blast, and seems like exactly what we wanted from Crusade this whole time. So I'm all for it.
Excellent.
And with that, I guess we'll leave it there, eh?
Yeah. Walk us home, Jonny.
Thank you all so much for coming along and listening. Come join the Discord, as we said earlier. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Peace out.